What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Early Edge College Football Picks Show. We've got a jam-packed show, and of course, we're always brought to you by BetMGM. Make it legendary. My name is Sia Nejad, but I got to be honest, you don't care about me. You care about the expert analysts on this show, so let's bring them in right now. We've got Mike McClure. He's back in the hot seat. We got Emory Hunt, and we got Tom Casale. And gentlemen, we've got a lot of games to cover. We're going to go conference by conference, and let's start with the ACC. Mike, I'm going to start with you. Louisville at SMU. This is a 3-point spread. SMU favored here at home, a 53.5-point total. I got to tell you, I was on a live bet with Louisville against Clemson last week. It didn't go so well for me. Interesting fourth quarter antics by both teams. Nonetheless, Mike, what do you like in this one, SMU laying 3?
I like the total here. I'm going to go over the total of 52.5. Yes, it is a big number, but not necessarily a huge number by ACC standards. I thought the number should have been 56.5 in this one. When I look at both of these teams, I first of all, I think the game's going to be competitive and still pretty high stakes overall. But looking at both of the quarterbacks, I think they both can have some success here. I think that this is one that offenses are ahead of defenses in this game and not going to get in the way of picking a winner. I personally think the line is about right considering the location of the game. In college football, this essentially is implying that these teams are even on a neutral field, and I tend to agree with that here. So I'm going to go over the total. Again, 56.5 is where I had it. 53.5 is kind of in between 52.5, 53.5 in the market, but 54 is still relatively key. So since I'm under that right now, I'll take the over here.
All right, Emory, I know you're picking a team in this one. You like Louisville to bounce back here. You're taking the points.
Yeah, I'm taking the points here. What's fascinating is though we thought Isaac Brown not being able to play versus Clemson was going to be a detriment. But man, then Keywan Brown comes in and rushes for 9 yards a carry. So they legitimately have some tailbacks. If they lean in on their run game, they'll be much more balanced than given credit for. I think the run game combined with what they can do defensively and the significance of this moment, the severity of this particular game allows Louisville to get the job done.
All right, Tom, you're actually on the other side. Now, if I remember correctly, you've been an SMU guy for a couple of years now, and they did have that loss to Wake Forest, but since then, beat Miami, dismantled Boston College, which isn't super hard to do. You're laying the points.
Yeah, I agree with Mike that the spread is right at 3, and I expect a competitive game. For me, this is more of a spot play, right? Louisville's lost 2 straight at home. They really were in the driver's seat to get to the ACC championship game, but then they were favorites, big favorite against Cal, favorite against Clemson, and dropped both those games. And then you got SMU coming off a bye week. And I do think I didn't like the way SMU looked early in the season, but I do think they're starting to round in the form right now, and they still have a chance to make that ACC title game. So close game. I could see this close in the fourth quarter, but I'll take SMU minus the 3.
All right. We might see Georgia Tech in the ACC title game. And I'm starting with you, Emory Hunt, because you've been the Haynes King advocate since preseason, if not earlier, for all I know. Pittsburgh at Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech favored by 2.5. Of course, Pittsburgh coming off that loss. College game day was in Pittsburgh. Notre Dame dismantles them. How do you see this one, Emory?
Firstly, I love the number because that already factors in Georgia Tech making it an exciting game because of how they tend to play these games. But what I find fascinating is that every time on Twitter, when you don't put in the work, you only can hang on narratives, right? So every time you look on Twitter, man, Haynes King can run the ball. If he could throw, he'd be fine. Haynes King really is a good runner, but man, he can't throw. But every time I look up, he got like 80% completion percentage, 375 yards passing and 5 touchdowns. Like, what are people talking about? This dude can throw the football, and it's because he's well balanced and what he does is a great leader. Something like the college version of Jalen Hurts. Georgia Tech tends to win more than they lose, and they lost that game against NC State not because of Haynes King, but because they couldn't stop anybody. Last week they got timely stops, and the offense was able to pay it forward and capitalize. And I think that'll be the case here in this ball game against Pitt.
Mike, do you agree? Are we on Georgia Tech laying the points here?
Yeah, lay the points at 2.5. At this point, I honestly expected this number to kind of be 4.5, considering, what happened a week ago. You talk about Pitt playing Notre Dame, just really got absolutely rolled in that game. And it was kind of to be expected a little bit. I think there was a large gap between Pitt and Notre Dame, despite Pitt being a ranked team. But what happened there is it essentially, kind of eliminates any postseason hope for Pitt after that game. Georgia Tech, look, love Haynes King, love the team. They make things way more exciting than they should a lot of the time. But we say this all the time: good teams, no matter what they do, they find a way to win in the end, and that's what Georgia Tech's been able to do. So at 2.5, it would be Georgia Tech for me. Again, I was expecting a 4.5 here, considering what happened with Pitt last week.
This reminds me of what I said last week when Pitt was hosting Notre Dame, and I'm like, College Game Day is going to be there. They're going to walk down Narrative Street with me. They're going to keep it close. I mean, it wasn't like an official pick of mine, but that's where I was headed. And yeah, that didn't work out for me or for anyone watching that game that was a Pittsburgh fan. Tom Casale, are we 3 for 3 on Georgia Tech laying the points?
Yeah, we are. Listen, I thought Pitt was going to give Notre Dame a battle last week. That's one of those games you watch for 2 minutes and go,
Yeah.
uh-oh.
Yeah.
I'm not joking. I watched the game for 3 minutes and I switched it and I never turned it back. You could see that was going to be demolition from the start.
Yeah.
And you had College Game Day. Pitt was all excited. Now you got to go play Georgia Tech. Listen, there's two teams the market just doesn't love, because when I do my when I do my chat every Saturday, the questions I always get are about Georgia Tech and BYU. How come BYU's under? How come they're only favored by 1 or 2? You know what I mean? So in the power ratings of the odds makers, those are two teams they're not overly high on. And you see it here. I'm with Mike again. I thought this spread would be over the 3 points. It's 2.5. I know Georgia Tech doesn't do this often, but they might win going away here on Saturday.
All right. By the way, that chat that you do on Saturday, are you talking about the SportsLine Discord?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Pretty good transition, because if you're not a SportsLine member, that means you're not in the SportsLine Discord, because the SportsLine Discord is free to SportsLine members. And if you want to join SportsLine to become a member of the Discord, but also to get all the picks when they come out, all the model simulations, all the simulated picks, DFS plays, articles pertaining to all sports, all you got to do is go to sportsline.com/join. And if you type in the promo code winners, you get 60% off the annual plan. Again, that's sportsline.com/join, 60% off the annual plan if you type in the promo code winners. And that is, we've got this discord.gg/sportsline. If you are a SportsLine member, that's where you go to get to the SportsLine Discord. Again, discord.gg/sportsline. Speaking of winners, we got to get to more winners. We're going to do Big Ten best bets coming up next on the Early Edge College Football Picks Show. We move to the Big Ten. Let's talk USC and Oregon. I'm fascinated to know what you all think of this game, because, gentlemen, while I think this line is pretty huge, it's maybe a little bit bigger than I thought it would be, I still kind of lean to Oregon. Tom, I'm going to start with you. The spread here, Oregon hosting USC, 9.5. The total, 59.5. What do you like, Tom?
Yeah, this is a nostalgic bet for me, because when I was a young bettor, many times I'd be down on Saturday, and then 10:30 Eastern time, here comes Oregon and USC, and I'm betting the over. No novice bettor, when they need to win a game, is betting under, right? So these games are usually crazy. If you look at the scores, other games historically, and I think we're going to see a track meet in this game. I think Oregon's offense at home is finally going to blow. They haven't looked like Oregon recently in some of these games, but I think USC is going to have success offensively, and I think Oregon's going to have success offensively. I thought this total might be 60 or above, so at 59.5, I'll go over.
All right, Mike, what do you like in this one?
I like Oregon, kind of like Tom. I think Oregon continues to get on track offensively here. Like they had a tough spot on the road at Iowa and ultimately came out victorious there. USC, kind of the same thing, played Iowa, didn't cover the spread, did win the game outright. I look at Oregon, though, offensively, and I just think they can do enough here. And I do expect USC to keep up for a good portion of this game, but I expect Oregon to be too much too late in this one. I do like the over. I was very close to bringing you a massive total on the Oregon team total over. So yeah, I think that Oregon just does enough offensively here that USC isn't quite able to keep up in the second half of this game.
Emory, we talked about USC Iowa last week, and I know I was leaning towards Iowa. I can't remember what all the official picks were on that show, but we certainly thought, okay, Iowa's going to come in and play some smash mouth football, which is exactly what happened. But USC still ended up prevailing in that game. You're actually taking the points in this one.
Right, because of what happened last week, it was easy for them to go in the tank and say, all right, we lost this game. It's raining in Southern California. We made that joke last weekend. But at the end of the day, they came back, fought hard, and won the contest. And so I think because this is a massive matchup between two former Pac-12 rivals, and the fact that USC still can quietly climb themselves into this college football playoff conversation if they're able to pull off the upset, I agree with Tom. We'll see a lot of points, but because we'll see a lot of points, I think USC is able to keep it close. So that's why I like them plus 9.5.
All right, let's move to Nebraska at Penn State. Penn State laying 9.5 points here, a 44.5 point total. Mike, I'll go back to you on this one. What do you like?
I'll take the points here with Nebraska at 9.5. I thought that 9.5 on a game with a total of 44.5 is a pretty considerable margin.
Yeah.
There's no doubt that even though it's been a disappointing season for Penn State, they're still the better football team, in my opinion, and they're definitely going to have a home field advantage still at this particular spot, talking about a night game here. However, I thought the number should have been 7 or 7.5. Again, with points at a premium at 44.5, the number of 7, 8, and 9 all become a lot more key than a normal average college football game here. So I just think that Nebraska can ultimately do enough. If they can claw their way to 17 points in this game, I think they're able to cover this spread. So I like the 9.5. Again, I was kind of expecting 7.5 here.
Emory, you agree you're taking the points.
Right. I think the odds makers are still underestimating how good TJ LaLeaf looked in his start and his playing time so far this season. This is someone that looks to be the heir apparent to Dylan Raiola, if not push him out the door, because he looks impressive in his short stint as a Cornhusker. And I think because we're seeing them play really well behind TJ LaLeaf, that can keep this one close, if not outright get the win. So 9.5, I agree with Mike. I'm taking them plus the points.
Yeah, he certainly looked good last week. Tom, you're focused on the total here. People look at 44.5 in a college football game, and they're probably thinking, God, that's not a lot of points, but it's still above a key number. You're on the under here.
Yeah, listen, I was against Penn State last week. I thought it was one of the best situational spots of the season. They're coming off 2 emotional games against Ohio State and Indiana. They lose in the last seconds, then they go on the road against Michigan State. The thing though, that game was close. You know, the final score doesn't show it, but that was close in the fourth quarter. The problem for Michigan State is after early on they couldn't get 10 yards. That Penn State defense really played well in that game. They were motivated. They were pumped up. Listen, Northeast, it's going to be in the low 30s, a little wind. I think this is going to be a lower scoring slog. I can see why the other guys took a Nebraska. That number does look a little big to me, but this kind of looks like a 2013 game either way. So I'm going to go under this low total.
All right, we got 2 of you taking the points and one of you taking the under 44.5. We got to move. We're going to move from Big 10 to Big 12. That's coming up next. And we're going to, one of the games we're going to cover is that BYU game. I can't wait to hear what you all have to say about BYU Cincinnati. Tom, of course, a lot of people not sure about the BYU lines week to week. So we'll get you guys to lock in there. Big 12 best bets coming up next. We're back on the Early Edge College Football Picks Best Bets Show. Mike McClure, Emory Hunt, and Tom Casale. We moved to the Big 12, and we moved to Kansas and Iowa State. Iowa State laying 4.5 points here, 55.5 point total. Emory, I'm going to start with you. What do you like in this game?
I trust Iowa State. A little bit more consistency than I've seen from Kansas this year. Kansas has been a bit up and down. So for me, I would lean more toward the Cyclones being a little bit more consistent than the Jayhawks, although the Jayhawks are fun to watch. Give me Iowa State minus 4.5.
Mike, we're looking at a total here.
Yeah, it's got to be the total here for me. I haven't trusted Iowa State really all season. Been looking for ways to kind of bet against them. Like Emory, though, I think Kansas is a little inconsistent, especially considering this road environment, early start time. in late November, but the total at 55.5, I really do believe it should be 51.5 with these two teams in their current form. Now, I know that Kansas has been very suspect defensively. I just still don't trust this Iowa State offense enough to go out there and score points. This is another one I was extremely close to giving you. Iowa State's team total under 29.5. I was hoping to catch the 30.5. At that point, I would be looking under pretty significantly if you could still cash a ticket at 30. So watch that one throughout the week. If we're wrong, personally, I think the market only moves one way, which is down. So under 55.5 here.
Yeah, but these nuggets are really appreciated because I know a lot of people listening will keep an eye on that team total. And if it does happen to hit 30.5, Mike's going to love that bet. But right now he likes the under, and Tom, so do you.
Yeah, I agree with Mike. I think this number is a little high. Iowa is a funny place. It's the state of Iowa is where offenses go to die, right? You have to check. You have to check your offenses at the door, whether you're playing Iowa or Iowa State, especially at this time of year. Listen. Iowa State's been a tough team for me to gauge this year. They lost both starting corners. You wouldn't believe a game where you get more dominated than they got dominated by TCU and somehow came out and ahead and won the game. So I think we could see another game like that, a 21-17, a 24-20 kind of game. So I'll go under the 55.5.
If you want to talk about dominated and TCU, we don't have to go back too far because TCU's at Houston, and if memory serves, TCU recently dominated Houston, laying 1.5 here, another 55.5 point total. Emory, I'll start with you. You like a total? You like a side in this one?
Both. Honestly, I can see this one going over because I can't trust Houston's defense. They've been collapsing as of late, so they've been in shootout city in Cougar Land. So I do love Houston to win this one. I can trust their offense a little bit more so than TCU, but man, this is going to be a ton of points in this ball game. But I like that I'm taking the Cougars to cover the spread.
Yeah, it's hard to not want to fade TCU again. Tom Casale, what do you like in this one?
Yeah, so last week when we talked about TCU BYU, I mentioned how I had the TCU for a big play against Iowa State. And there's just something not right with this team. It's kind of hard to pinpoint, but you look at the team on paper and it's not what you see on the field. I think Josh Hoover has completely lost his confidence. And I think this is a team in a free fall right now. I like Houston a lot at -1.5.
This one at 4:00, Mike McClure. And I say that because it was at, I think, 10 or 10:30 last weekend. And I stayed up late to watch it because I had to play on BYU. While I was watching it, I was checking out the Cover 3 podcast with Tom Fornelli, Chip Patterson, and Bud Elliott, and many other special guests that were on that show doing it live. So I don't know, but we'll have hopefully some late night games to bet this Saturday. But Mike, are we going 3 for 3 on Houston laying the 1.5?
I'm going 3 for 3 here, Sia. And look, this is more of betting against TCU than it is wanting to back Houston at this point. Houston or TCU, as Tom mentioned, in free fall, and we honestly probably should have recognized it just a little bit. As much as Kansas State had struggled a bit, they went into Kansas State and essentially, I won't say got blown out, but they were road favorites in Manhattan, lost by like 13 points in that game. The very next week, they got the win against Baylor, but allowed 36 points in that win. Then they went to West Virginia, 16.5 point favorites, win the game only by 6 points, lose as 7.5 point favorites to Iowa State, get blown out by BYU last week. It's a team that, again, I think they are in free fall. The postseason contention is completely eliminated at this point. So yeah, it'd be Houston or nothing here for me.
All right. BYU at Cincinnati. So Tom, I have to start with you here because I don't know how good BYU is. I really don't. I feel like early in the season, we saw just a little bit of turnover luck, a little bit of general luck, but it's still a really good team. Now, they're laying points at Cincinnati. It's a 54.5 point total. I think I want to continue to ride this BYU train, Tom.
Yeah, I think the biggest mistake I've made all season was not taking BYU last week, and it was only because they were coming off that Texas Tech game. And sometimes you don't know if kids are going to be able to rebound that next week right away. But they slaughtered TCU. I'll tell you, the most impressed I've been with BYU all season was actually the Texas Tech game because of the way their defense played. Their defense is the real deal. They kept them in that game. Now, the Texas Tech defense is the real. I mean, that's a real deal defense. So BYU couldn't do much offensively, but I think this BYU defense is really, really good. And listen. I get it. The spot, Cincinnati at home, getting a couple of points. Yeah, you want to jump on them, but I'm on this BYU team. I think they're really good, and I think they get the win.
I have a feeling this is gonna be a sweep again. Emory, I'll go to you. Are we also on BYU here?
Yep. And a lot of the reasons Tom talked about, because the defense is what's going to be the reason why they win this ball game. Their offense has a chance to figure things out because their defense gives them so many opportunities at bat. And because they're able to make sure they pay it forward with their defense, getting those key stops, they end up ultimately winning the ball game. Because remember, they still have a young quarterback back there under center. And so at the end of the day, it takes him a little bit to get going, but when he does get going, the offense looks fluid. But by that time, the defense has choked out the other team. That'll happen in this game here against the Bearcats.
Oh, well put. Mike McClure, is it a clean sweep in favor of BYU laying the points?
It is, but I will tell you, I don't love it. Everything screams Cincy here to take the points at home. It's a night game in Cincy. It's their final home game of the season. BYU, a team that I personally think has still maybe been just a touch overrated all year. You've kind of always been waiting for the wheels to fall off just a little bit. But it will be the BYU side here. I do think they have a legitimate defense. The other thing I would say is it would be so Big 12 to have this team get a second loss here and just like muddy things up even more. Like that is literally what the Big 12 is. So everything screams to me, take Cincinnati at home at night to cause some chaos. But I just trust the BYU defense to make this a little lower scoring and ultimately emerge.
All right. Mike, do you have any commentary on the 54.5? Is that a number that's just a touch too high for you?
Just a touch. I'm a little concerned because since he just surrendered 30 again last week, they lost 2 in a row. But ultimately, yes, being the home game at night and still a fine season for Cincy overall, I think it's just a touch too high. But it would probably be isolating it to a first half if I were playing an under here.
All right. 8:00 start in that one. I should have looked ahead of time. I can't wait to see what the night games are, because I'm certainly going to be watching and dialed in and maybe have some bets out there. And I don't know, gentlemen, maybe that's in the best bets portion of this show, which is coming later. Coming up next, ladies and gentlemen, we've got the SEC best bets. And then, of course, we go to our best bets from Mike McClure, Emory Hunt, and Tom Casale. That's coming up next on the Early Edge College Football Picks Show. We're back, and it's time to take a look at some SEC games that we've got some money on. Arkansas, Texas. Texas laying 9.5 points at home, 57.5 point total. Mike McClure, I'll start with you.
Give me Texas. I think Texas wins this one in a big way here. I think it's, a high-scoring game. It almost always is anytime Arkansas takes the field. Texas still has a lot to play for here, and it's because they are going to ultimately, in my opinion, be a 3-loss SEC team. There's going to be multiple of them. They're going to be lobbying like crazy to get in this college football playoff. And I think they leave no doubt here. I think they go out and really have that big offensive output. And then they turn around and point to the games that they lose, right? You look at how they've lost games this season. They lost by only allowing 14 points on the road to Ohio State. They lost that tough one to the Florida Gators. And then, of course, the blowout to Georgia, right? But all of those teams, essentially top 10 teams, when they lost those games, now they get this opportunity to bounce back big, and then they'll have that big showdown with Texas A&M. I just think that they're ultimately going to have a big performance here, win out, have the big controversy. We have all these 3-loss SEC teams. Give me Texas here to roll in the big way.
Emory, I don't know if you have any commentary on Texas prospects to make the college football playoff, but either way, what's interesting about this total, which I think, again, at BetMGM is sitting here at 57.5, I think it opened a lot lower. Talk to me about what you like in this game.
First of all, I love good loss season. That's the SEC you can't wait for, boy. They have their bye week this week where they playing all these FCS schools, and it's good loss season. You know what I'm saying? But this one started at 53.5. I like the over regardless, because Arkansas, you're right. I still think they have the best pro prospect at quarterback in the SEC, just in the SEC and Taylor Green. reminds me so much of Randall Cunningham. Movements, how he throws, how he runs. Problem is he tends to put the ball on the turf. That gives Texas added possessions. On top of the fact that Arkansas defense stinks, that gives Texas a chance to score a lot. Arkansas will score at least 20 in this ball game, but Texas will score at least 40. And so I agree with Mike. Texas will win this one in an impressive fashion. And guess what? Now we back to good loss season. So I like the over more than anything.
Nothing like a good controversy. Tom, what are you on in this game?
Yeah, I agree with the guys here. I think Texas rolls, and I like the over. That was my pick. Arkansas, they invent ways to lose. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, they're hard to blow out. They're in every game, and they keep losing. But I'll say this about Texas: two things. One, I think they're the worst coach team in college football. I do. All the penalties, all the sloppiness every week. I just don't think they're one of the 12 best teams. And it's not all his fault. It's not all Arch Manning's fault. But there's no doubt in my mind that they have a better quarterback on their bench than Arch Manning. There's no doubt in my mind. So I think they get I think they get a nice win here. I just don't think they're going to beat Texas A&M though. I don't think this team is good enough to beat the best teams.
Emory, any thoughts on, speaking of controversy, that statement that Arch Manning is the second best quarterback on the Texas Longhorns?
It is not far-fetched, to be honest. When you watch some of the throws and how he throws, he's gotten better, but man, it still leaves a lot to be desired, and it's tough to watch because it doesn't help you expand your offense. It kind of puts a cap on it, and that's what got them in trouble versus Georgia.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's move to Kentucky at Vanderbilt. 53.5 point total, 9.5 point spread for the Fighting Diego Pavias. Tom, I'll start with you. Are we laying the points with Vanderbilt?
Yeah, I'm gonna listen. Kentucky's a little better than I thought. I went to a snapping kicking camp with my son, who's a long snapper this year, and a father of a prominent Kentucky player was there, and he told me that they'd be lucky to win 2 games. So I guess the moral there is don't take betting information from a dad at a snapping camp. But so they performed better than I thought this year. But Vanderbilt, I don't love in the double-digit favorite role. I don't know if Kentucky has enough offense to keep up with them, so I'll lean Vanderbilt here.
Emory, what do you like in this one?
I love how once Vanderbilt lost one game and there was a poof out of the sphere of conversation that no one talked about. They lost last week, so it's just like no one cares anymore, right? It's crazy how quickly people forget they lost 2 weeks ago. So because they lost that game to Auburn in overtime and no one remembers, Vanderbilt's still a very good team. And so and they only have 2 losses. So we're talking about good loss season. Vandy only has 2 as opposed to those that will have 3. I like them to roll in this ball game. We have been not talking about Vanderbilt for since they lost that game to Texas. And so for me, it's just going to be fun to see them get back on the winning track in an impressive way. And people now have to force themselves to conjure up some thoughts about Vanderbilt potentially making the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, style points maybe in play here. Mike McClure, is it a clean sweep on Vanderbilt laying the points?
It's a clean sweep for a lot of the reasons everyone said. However, I would pivot my pick now that I've found a team total here. I can find Kentucky under 21.5. That would be my play in this one now. It was sitting 20.5. We all know how key 20 and 21 can be, but the idea that I can cash with Kentucky getting to 21 in this game and not worrying about the spread, that's where I'm going to be on it. So I do like Vandy. Think they have the potential to go win by double digits and really pull away here. But I would be on Kentucky's offense under 21.5 here.
All right, let's transition to Tennessee at Florida. Florida, I mean, they fought real hard last week. I thought the game was hanging in the balance for at least a majority of the game. Now they're getting 4.5 points. I think this was 3.5. Some money coming in on Tennessee, but here at BetMGM, it's 4.5. 57.5 point total. Again, Florida at home getting the points. Mike, I'll start with you. What do you like in this game?
I like Tennessee. I think Tennessee still has a decent amount to play for. We talk about all the 3-loss SEC teams. Tennessee's putting themselves in position to essentially be one of them. Florida is a team that, it still goes down as a good win, particularly on the road. At 3.5, I really like it. You can still find a couple 3.5s out there. I thought the number, as crazy as this might sound, because we've seen how well Florida has competed at times this season. I thought the number should have been 6 here, which is, again, a very different number than especially 3.5. I think that Tennessee can do enough offensively to put a lot of pressure on Florida. So I think Florida's had their big moments throughout the season. I think that this is a big opportunity for the Vols. So I like them here -3.5 or 4.5.
Tom, you've got your eye on the total at 57.5.
Yeah, these teams like Florida and Penn State, they're kind of tough to gauge like late in the season because you don't know if they're going to show up for every game, right? Florida, they thought they were going to make the college football playoff. They were playing for a lot early in the season. And then you come down to the end of the season. So after they play like a really tough game like they did against Ole Miss, I kind of like to go the other way. So I agree with the Tennessee pick. I went with the over only because I think Tennessee is going to have a lot of success offensively, and I think Florida is going to do enough to get it over the 57.5.
All right, Emory, you're also laying the points with the Vols.
Yeah, I just can't see Florida finding that level of consistency against this defense to make it a tighter game than that. So I do like the fact that Tennessee's offense, we know, will come in and score. You got to figure out on the other side, how are you going to get some points to keep pace? Florida, too inconsistent despite having some talent on both sides of the ball. I got to go Tennessee here.
All right, laying the points with Tennessee. I'm gonna have my eye on that game, maybe for a live bet. SEC, good loss season. Our producer Ben putting that up. That's really good stuff.
I gotta get that sweatshirt. I gotta get me one. That's funny.
That is amazing. Emory, real quick on the college football playoff. We have a 12-team playoff, and I know last week you talked about the 24-team playoff. But even with 12, there are going to be some teams, whether it's the SEC or otherwise, that are going to complain, and perhaps rightfully complain in some regard that they're not in it. But when you expand to 12 teams, this is just more me editorializing. Can you really complain that you're not the last team in? Because we've already expanded it. I mean, I know you want 24, but 12 is still a lot.
The only way you can complain with it being 12 is if you're one of the G5 conference champs that you're like, man, we won a conference and we don't get a seat at the table. That's mainly why I like 12. I would even rather 16 if you're going to get the 10 conference champs in automatically and then the 6 at largest. But we know the SEC will want more than their fair share of teams in. So that's why 24 seems like the happy medium, considering we have that at the FCS level and the Division II level, which has 32 now, and Division III has 32 now because there's so many more teams there. But 24 is the right number to get your 10 conference champs and your 12 at largest. But if you have a 12-team playoff, it should be each one of the Power 5 champions and then your group of 5 champ or whatnot, the highest rated, how you have it. I think it's a good model the way they have it now. I just wish every conference got their champion in, and then we can argue the semantics between the at-large bid, but make sure your conference champion matters.
Mike, Emory hit a lot of notes there, a lot of high notes. Anything you want to comment on or expand upon?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's tough. I think that no matter how big or small we make the playoff, there's always going to be teams that are on the outside looking in that maybe should have been there, right? So I think that winning the conference that you play in would be ideal to get you a seat at the table. And I think that we'd have better result if we had 24 or more. Would it ultimately give us more SEC and Big Ten teams? Yes. Would that be, better, more entertaining football to watch and more games? Yes. I think that would be a positive thing overall for everyone. As far as making it 16 and removing buys, I don't necessarily know that I want that. The thing that you have to consider if you start getting to 24 or more is this isn't college basketball where we can turn around and play back-to-back games or where we can turn around and play 2 days later, right? So the more games you put on the bodies of these players, the more injuries we're going to have, the harder it is scheduling wise. So if you expanded to 24, there would have to be a lot of thought put into scheduling and timing on a lot of this.
Yeah, and I know, Emory, you addressed that a little bit last week with maybe rolling back a game or two. Tom, final word on this subject.
Yeah, well, we talked about it last week, and I mentioned, adding more teams isn't going to give you like a Cinderella winner. Cinderellas don't win in college basketball. Cinderella means making to the Sweet 16, and then they get pounded. We know the teams that are going to be in the mix, even if it's basketball or football. So it's not about like more teams having a chance to win. It's about, like Emory said, just giving more teams the opportunity to be in the playoffs. So I can see it from that perspective. I know the argument is always, well, Boise State isn't going to win it anyway. Well, nobody thinks Boise State's going to win it. It's just about, them getting into the playoffs. In my personal opinion, I think 16 is going to be the number. I think we're going to get there soon, and then that's going to be the way it is for at least a decade.
Well, you mentioned Cinderella, and that's a good segue, frankly, to our best bets and dogs of the week, because Cinderella James Madison is going to make an appearance. Again, best bets and our dog of the week coming up next on the Early Edge. We're back on the Early Edge College Football Picks Show. Gentlemen, let's take a look before we get to your best bets, our best bets, or at least the record. So Emory goes 0-2 last week. Tom Casale 1-1. Mike McClure wasn't here, so no best bets. Mike McClure still crushing it with the plus 6.4 units, and we need Tom and Emory to have a nice little Saturday to improve their standing. Let's get to it. Emory, I broke off the last segment talking about my alma mater, James Madison University. You're talking about teams getting into the college football playoff that maybe there's no real expectation that they're going to win it all. Regardless, James Madison in a pretty good spot, and they play Washington State. That's one of your best bets.
Who they play this week, Sia?
Washington.
It don't matter who they play. They win it anyway. Later 12.5 points with James Madison. And the reason why, man, since Alonzo Barrett has been fully healthy and ready to go, this has been the best team in G5, and they've shown it week in, week out. This is now the team that we saw last year put 60 points up on North Carolina. So I like the fact that James Madison is playing their best ball right now when it matters, when everyone else has lost a game or two. They look like the most complete team coming into the season. I thought it was going to be Louisiana versus JMU in the Sun Belt Conference Championship game. So for me, I would like to see them go out, take care of business. Remember, they got to win in an impressive fashion. And although Washington State is just the shell of itself, they still have Power 5 remnants around that name. So people will see, wow, they beat Washington State. We know Washington State is not the same Washington State that it was a couple of seasons ago in the original Pac-12. But I do like the fact that we'll see James Madison, while they still have Coach Chesney before he takes a job somewhere else, they'll get the job done. And I'll give you my second pick. We go back to back here, or do we go?
Let's go back to back. Yeah, let's talk to me about Lehigh laying the point.
Yeah, how about the 160th meeting, the oldest rivalry in college football between Lehigh and Lafayette? I went to the 150th game when it was at Yankee Stadium. It was a fantastic matchup, fantastic rivalry. But this is one of the best ones in college football. And Lehigh is undefeated, 11-0 right now going into this final game. They won last year, 38-14. Lafayette leads the all-time series 82-73-5. But when you look at Lehigh and how they play defense and how they've shut teams down while continuing to increase the point total on offense, they got two tailbacks that are fantastic. Lay the 11.5 points with the Mountain Hawks. They'll get win number 74 in this great college football rivalry.
All I heard was James Madison minus 12.5, and James Madison is going to win it all. That's our show, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Oh, we've got more picks. Tom Casale, talk to me about Georgia Southern getting some points, and also Missouri in an interesting spot getting some points as well.
Yeah, well, first, I want to say, my luck has been so bad in these best bets. My winner last week was South Carolina plus 19.5, and they were up 30-3 at halftime. And when Texas A&M started coming back, I was calculating ways I was not going to cover the 19.5. So that's how gun shy and how beaten down I am over these best bets. But I think I got a couple of good ones this week. I got two dogs. Georgia Southern's getting 12.5 at home. That's interesting because I bet Old Dominion to win the Sun Belt, and this would have been for a spot, Sia, if it wasn't for your James Madison team this year. But so they've played well, but on the road, just 2-3. They got blasted by an average Marshall team. Clay Helton is 17-6 straight up at home at Georgia Southern. He's lost one game this year by 3 points to a good Southern Miss team. Georgia Southern's won 3 of 4. This is for a bowl game. I think it's going to be closer than that 12.5. And then you go to Missouri, Oklahoma. For me, I think Missouri is better than Texas just from watching. I do, but they've just come up short in their big games. And now you get Oklahoma at home after the Alabama game. I like Oklahoma more as a dog than I do a favorite of over a touchdown. I think this is another game where Missouri fights. They're in it to the end. We'll have to see if they can get over the hump, but I think they cover the 7.5.
Yeah, I totally agree. I like the 7.5 there as well. Mike, talk to me about your two best bets for the week.
We'll start with Tennessee. Act now as soon as you watch this. There are 2 3.5 still available in the market as the time of recording here. It's 4.5 everywhere else. I fully expect it to close 4.5 or more. I make the number 6 here. In Florida, while they've had the ability to compete and have come up big at a few spots this year, I don't think that they're going to be able to stop Tennessee offensively. And once Tennessee basically puts 27 points on the board, I just think it's really difficult for Florida to keep up here. They've had an okay season. They had a brutal schedule. They had the highlights. They had the high moments here. We're going to have a new coaching staff coming in at some point. This, to me, is a spot where they come out just a little flat. Tennessee still motivated, certainly on the outside looking in terms of making college football playoff, but not impossible. You could see some absolutely crazy chaos in the SEC. The only thing Tennessee can do is take care of business here, and I think they do it in a big way and ultimately win this game by a touchdown. So give me Tennessee minus 3.5. And then it would not be the college football pick show without mentioning Kansas State in some way, talking about the Big 12. How about the big number here of 17.5? I'm pretty sure a look ahead preseason would have had this game around a field goal. Avery Johnson should be out there. I expect Lincoln Cure, tight end, to really be more involved offensively. And I think that Utah is definitely the better team here. There's zero doubt about it. I don't think they do a whole lot, though. I think they just kind of run the football at will, milking that clock. Kansas State does enough. Again, not going to threaten to win this one outright, but it's 17.5. I think that's too many points here for a Kansas State team that's been wildly inconsistent, but still on any given day has the ability to go score 28 points in a game. So give me the Wildcats plus 17.5.
17.5, certainly a huge line there. And we're laying the points with Tennessee. Let's take a look before we get to the underdogs. Let's take a look at our best bets. We got Emory Hunt on James Madison minus 12.5 and Lehigh minus 11.5. Tom Casale, Georgia Southern plus 12.5 and Missouri plus 7.5. Mike McClure, Tennessee minus 3.5 and Kansas State plus 17.5. Underdog bet of the week, Mike McClure. I start with you.
How about Missouri? I think Missouri has a shot to knock off Oklahoma here. Tom, I know Tom likes them at plus 7.5. I think Missouri is closer to Oklahoma than people may realize. And I think Oklahoma, while they've got the best defense maybe in college football, offensively, I think they leave a lot to be desired here. And I think this is a potential flat spot for them after that massive win. Things were looking a little bleak for them, like great season, probably not going to make the college football playoff. All of a sudden they get that big win. They're in line to make the college football playoff here. The only thing standing in the way right now is the Missouri Tigers. And I think this game gets a little more competitive. So I like Missouri here. I agree with Tom's plus 7.5. I thought the number should have been 4.5. Give me Missouri plus 240.
Tom, you're staying consistent here because you like Georgia Southern plus 12.5, but you also want to sprinkle the money line.
Yeah, I think they have a shot to pull the upset at home. I think it's going to be a high-scoring, close game. But since I already talked about them, I'll give you a bonus one. Watch out for Coastal Carolina this week to pull a shocker. South Carolina has had a miserable season, and they are coming off a loss of losses last week. I mean, the head coach was going crazy going into the locker room. I just have to wonder what that week of practice looks like in Columbia, South Carolina. And this is Coastal's Super Bowl. So I'm going to be interested to see how that one turns out. But my official pick is Georgia Southern pulling out and getting the upset.
South Carolina losing that game. I mean, it just seems impossible. It just seems impossible. Emory, talk to me about Sacramento State coming off that win against, Idaho. They play UC Davis this week. You like them as your underdog of the week?
Yeah, the Causeway Series, great rivalry on the West Coast in the FCS. And when you think about Sacramento State, and if they can win this ball game, which I think they will, they may get themselves into the FCS postseason. We know Selection Sunday is coming up this Sunday, so they need another marquee win. And because UC Davis had the no contest earlier in the season. I want to say week 0 versus Mercer, where they had a 3-hour rain delay that just ended up calling the game no contest. Man, it hurts them. And so now they're getting a surging Sacramento State team, and UC Davis has lost a game every along the way, and this puts them in a precarious situation as well. But when you have this pressure type moment and Sacramento State going through the ringer in terms of the narrative around them, their program and their AD and all of that stuff, this is a prime spot for them to make a statement and get themselves into the postseason. I think they will do just that. And shout out to Brendan Marion, first season as a head football coach, leading this team to the postseason.
Great stuff, as usual, from Emory Hunt, Mike McClure, and Tom Casale. Gentlemen, thank you very much. We'll see you next week, and we'll do this thing all over again. Great stuff, again, from these three. And you can find these three and so many from the SportsLine universe, ladies and gentlemen, on the Early Edge. I host that show 10 o'clock in the morning every Monday through Friday on the SportsLine YouTube channel. Again, just go to YouTube, type in SportsLine, hit subscribe. We've got that 10 o'clock show every Monday through Friday, again, at 10 o'clock. So join us for, you mentioned, it's funny, Emory, you mentioned Selection Sunday. And I think, of course, college basketball when I hear that phrase. Got a lot of college basketball picks on that show now, NBA, NFL, college football, you name it. The Early Edge has it, including UFC and sports of that nature as well. Soccer, of course, as well. All right, Mike, Emory, Tom, thank you. Ben, thanks for producing this amazing show. We'll see you next time on the Early Edge College Football Picks Show. Have a great day, everybody.